Will democracy survive the next couple of years?
And essentially, we are the same.
Can't have government choosing winners or losers.
There are so many needs that Minnesota has.
What people are saying they need right now.
Access to Democracy is made possible in part by a donation from Firefly Credit Union. Firefly is the new name of U.S. Federal Credit Union, which has proudly served the financial needs of the greater Twin Cities community since 1925. At Firefly, we guide our members forward and give them the power to chase dreams by delivering the financial solutions they need to get ahead. From checking accounts to mortgages, we'll light the way. We are Firefly Credit Union, and this is life illuminated. By Thomson Reuters, providing legal professionals with intelligence, technology, and human expertise they need to find trusted answers. Thomson Reuters, the answer company. Online at thomsonreuters.com. And Dr. Charles Crutchfield of award-winning Crutchfield Dermatology in Eagan. Acknowledged as one of the nation's best physicians, a Minnesota native who trained at the Mayo Clinic, Dr. Crutchfield personally treats all patients and states that experience counts and quality matters. Crutchfield Dermatology, look good, feel great, with beautiful skin.
Welcome. Access to Democracy returns. And because I wasn't feeling that well, I got my doctor here. Well, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Dr. John Steubs of Tria Orthopedics in Bloomington, who's been here, I would say, someplace upwards of 6 times maybe over the years, and whom I met on a line at an airport in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
The rest is history.
Now, you are the team doctor, the medical director for the Minnesota Twins. Among other things, you specialize in knees and I don't know about ankles and what else, surgery at Tria. And as a matter of fact, you treated my knee, which was miraculous. You got me back bowling within 4 or 5 weeks. And unfortunately, the bowling's not so good, but you can't have everything. So you've been the Twins doctor just for a short period of time, right?
Yeah, a very short period of 30 years. Yeah. So this past season was my 30th year with the ball club. And I don't know where that time has gone. It's just flown by.
So you've been there at least through 2 World Championships.
I actually started after the first World Series. I started in '89, and so I was there in '91 for the '91 World Series. And so I thought that was just the norm. And 27 years has gone by without another World Series championship. So maybe we can get lucky before I retire.
What do you think about 19?
I think we're going to be better. There's still so many kind of unknowns. I think the front office has made some moves that are going to be very helpful. And I know that, as everyone does, and the papers will tell you, they're still combing the rosters looking for pitching help. Everybody needs pitching help.
Although the Twins have probably 4 solid starters at the moment, I would say.
Yeah, and I think what, and you know, I'm not in the front office. I don't work with those people on a day-to-day basis. But I think what my inkling is that we need some help with relief pitching, and that's what they're focusing on now. They've made, in my estimation as a doctor, my medical opinion about the people they've signed is that they've signed 3 very good players.
Well,
in addition to what we had. So
the biggest name, of course, is Nelson Cruz, who is a reputed home run hitter. Hit the longest home run ever hit at Target Field, as a matter of fact. And he just signed to a very handsome contract. And I think you gave him his physical before the contract was signed, right?
I saw him within the last couple of weeks. And, you know, the thing about him is that he's pretty much become purely a designated hitter, and we've rotated people through that position. He's an older guy, baseball-wise, not compared to you and me, Alan, but
well, certainly to me.
so a very experienced guy, and actually has over the last 5 years the most home runs in the majors. So he looks very fit. He looks like he's hopefully he won't miss a beat as he comes and helps us.
And he says he's anxious to play here. He had several choices, and he selected Minnesota for the reason that he was anxious to be with the Twins, according to the papers, anyway.
Yeah, and Alan, I read the same things in the paper, and of course, I look for information on the Twins. I do have sometimes when we sign players, I have an insight before the paper, but I rely on the paper too, and he's excited because of the young roster that we have, and he has the reputation of being a very, very good mentor to young players. So
we have several young players who could use a good mentor.
Yes, yeah, he should. and you know, if he, irrespective of his mentorship, if he's maintains the level of professionalism and the hitting that he's done over the last 5 years, I think the Twins will be happy.
Be a
with him.
tremendous improvement for the Twins.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Obviously, the papers stated and noted a lot of those facts about what our DHs have done the last couple of years, and he's a substantial upgrade. And you and I had been talking earlier about a couple other players. Jonathan Scope, who is they signed to play second base.
Our new second baseman.
New second baseman has had a history of. He was an all-star, I believe, in 1 year, and he's been a good player. He had a down year last year, but I didn't see him at all. He was seen elsewhere for his physical, but he comes also with a good reputation for being a good team guy.
Now, give us a little bit of history on Tria Orthopedics, because you've got about 40 orthopedic doctors in your several locations.
Yes, well, we do, and so Tria was a venture, a business venture between Park Nicollet Medical System, the University of Minnesota, and my private orthopedic group. We got together to establish a purely primary orthopedic center of excellence, and Tria started in 2005, and I was one of the original partners, founding members of Tria, and it immediately has had very, very good success in terms of number of patients and the quality of care, and so much so that we have a Tria in Woodbury and a Tria in Maple Grove, and it's grown, and so we have 3 different sites to service orthopedic needs. It's not only those of us who are orthopedic surgeons, you know, doing our surgery on an outpatient, because we have an operating rooms to do that, but we have at all the sites have a walk-in clinic that services orthopedic injuries. We don't take care of heart issues and normal emergency room visits, but people who have bone and skeleton muscle type injuries are seen in our walk-in clinics, and that's been incredibly.
This is such an athletic state that it's no wonder that any time I've been there, it is jammed up.
It's busy. It's been very busy, and it's you know, it's been a model for some of the other providers in the Twin Cities area. It's been enough of a successful model that everybody has modeled it and is following in that in our footsteps. And we try to take good care of people from the minute they come in with an injury all the way through their recovery from surgery.
Now, in addition to the Twins, the Minnesota Twins, you also represent the Minnesota Wild, the hockey team. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't personally take care of them, but several of our docs who work at Tria take care of the medical and orthopedic needs of the Wild, and so we've done that for many years. And so I have a couple partners who actually manage the Wild, the medical needs of the Wild.
And well, I know when I had a knee problem, right where I headed. And
well, thank you. Yeah, you and I have known each other long enough and been through a couple different issues, so appreciate that. Appreciate that you have the confidence in me.
Well, I also have confidence in the fact that maybe I can stay upright and not break anything. Not as much confidence in that. So we've talked about Nelson Cruz joining the Twins. What's the procedure? I know you're going to be going down to Fort Myers, and I know all the players have to undergo a physical before the season starts. How does that work? How has it worked in the past? How does it work now?
Yeah, and so good question. Historically, we have tried to do 30 or 40 pre-season physical evaluations on our players at Twins Fest. And so this year, instead of doing those physicals up here in Minnesota, we're going to do all of the players and coaches' preseason physical evaluations in Florida. So as soon as we get down there, mid-February, the 13th or whenever that is, we will try to get through 75 physicals over a few days.
I didn't realize you did the coaches also.
Yeah, we've done that for the last 5 years. The coaches are out on the field and they're participating in batting practice and throwing the ball around, and so
Makes good sense.
we evaluate them and take care of their injuries. They're not quite as highly injured as the players in terms of frequency of injury, but they have their own issues, and most of them are, as you would expect, wear and tear type things on a more mature body.
Now, when the season is over, some of these players were nursing injuries or rehabbing from injuries. Do you see them in the off season?
Unless they live here, I don't really see them much. They will go and either if they have a surgery, if they have an injury, we usually have them evaluated close to home. Now, a lot of the players for the Twins live in the off season in Florida, and so I occasionally will see a player at the facility in Florida during the winter, during the off season, and I happen to have a home down there that I spend some time at, and if I'm there, I will check in on both our major and minor league players who are rehabbing, and that doesn't happen very frequently. Most of the players spread to all corners of the United States, and then Latin America, the Dominican, and Puerto Rico.
Latin America as well. Yeah.
So it was particularly hard getting Nelson Cruz up here last week, because I think he had to take like a 5 o'clock plane out of the Dominican, came up to see me, and the next morning left on a 6 o'clock plane from here back to the Dominican. And so kind of awkward flight times for him, but we managed to get that taken care of.
And of course, well, he won't have to go through a physical now when you go to Florida.
Well,
right?
we do both orthopedic and medical evaluations. So when he comes to Florida, he'll still have a medical screening exam, heart and lung check, and just making sure that medically he's okay too. And most of the ball players are young and don't have medical problems. Occasionally, in a player in their late 30s, they may have high blood pressure or something, but for the most part, the medical part of it is a screen to just pick up something that we might not expect.
Our biggest Minnesota name, of course, has retired as of last year, so you won't be doing Joe Mauer, at least in terms of the Twins this year.
No, and Joe will be very much missed. He and Brian Dozier, both very, very good teammates, good presence in the clubhouse, and it's hard to estimate what that will mean, and but both of them will be missed, their veteran leadership, because really the team had a couple other players, but for the most part they were the two main leaders in the clubhouse, and Nelson Cruz will replace some of that, and some of our other guys will have to step up and play that role.
Yeah, I'll miss Dozier, and I don't know where he was with the Dodgers, but I don't know where he will be this coming year. But just his personality and everything that he was involved in made him an outstanding guy. He
was always a very, very positive guy, and just always had a smile on his face. Just easy to be around. And Joe was a little more reserved, but always very, very easy to be around. And
Mississippi nice against Minnesota nice.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. But both of them were just, really good, solid guys, and we'll miss them.
Now, one thing about the Twins, and it's interesting with the weather that we have, although this year has been, at least knock wood so far, mild, is that players don't go away. They stick with the team. They stick with the area. Corey Koski lives locally. Justin Morneau is certainly in the local community and very involved in charities and all, and several others.
I think that those players who've been here for a number of years, the guys who kind of come through for 2 or 3 years don't have the connection with Minnesota, but the players who are here for long periods of time, the Herbecks and Laudners and Gaetti and Scotty Leas, not Gaetti, Scotty Leas and especially Corey and Maurer and Morneau, those people who were here for a length of time make a home here and wind up staying here.
And Michael Kadire has become a special assistant, and I think
Torrey, Torrey's back, and
Torrey Hunter again,
they've invited Torrey and LaTroy, and some of the former players have come back in various roles with the ball club.
I think that's very valuable also in terms of the young players to see that.
Yeah, and it is, and very professional guys. And Torrey was here for a year, at the end of his career, and that was he had a substantial influence on all the young players. Really helped improve the clubhouse chemistry, and they missed him the year after he was gone. And
he has such an outgoing personality.
You would think that these players are all very good. They know their craft. They're successful. They work hard. But the tenure, the atmosphere in the clubhouse is very much impacted when the times are tough by veteran players who can speak to their younger teammates and say, hey, just you can work through this. And it makes a difference.
And things are so different. For instance, in the Babe Ruth era, there was no training virtually. Well, he was training to drink beer, but I mean, other than that,
it's probably been 15, 20 years, of that, where things have changed, where everyone has an off-season regimen,
and they work right through this.
Yeah.
Right
they
through
usually
the
will take
year.
a month off, and then they get back to weightlifting or an off-season regimen. The pitchers may take a couple months off, let their arms rest, and if we end, as we have been at the end of September, they'll usually take October, November off, and then start back into a pitching regimen December, January, and get ready for spring training mid-February. And it's a year-round job. There's no question about it. Compared to even when I first started, Puckett was a classic guy who would come to spring training and take the 6 weeks of spring training to shed some weight and get in fighting shape, if you will. And Kirby was always really in good shape by the time the season opened, but he would carry a couple extra pounds as he came into spring training, and he would shed that as he played hard and worked hard in spring training.
Now, we had a third baseman last year who also had a weight problem, substantial weight problem. Do you have any take on where he is at the moment?
So, I don't personally, I've heard very good things from people who I believe he's working hard, and I think you're going to see some results just based on what I've heard from some of our trainers.
Should mention Sano.
Yeah.
So,
and I think from what I've heard is that he has really been committed to improving his conditioning, and one of our trainers has told me that he has seen some video of him and his body is different. And if you can see that in a video, then that means I think he's been working very hard. Now, he still has a couple of months before we get going here to maintain that. But the different thing, I think he's committed to being better.
Young man with all sorts of potential and power. And then we have Buxton, who's another young man who certainly has all sorts of speed and potential.
Yeah, I think that, again, it's hard for me as a physician and medical doc to comment on their attributes from baseball, but we all look at them and see that they're special players, and both of them weren't as successful last year as anybody hoped. And Buxton struggled, and he's a wonderful kid too. Both of them are. Buxton doesn't lack for work or for trying and effort, and he's got wonderful talent too. It's just harnessing that and bringing it out. And I'm sure he's as disappointed as anybody about how things went last year. And that was a combination of injuries and other things starting. Even at the beginning of the season, he didn't have major injuries, but things that were annoying that kept him from performing and kept him from being as good as he was the previous September.
So has the proliferation of attention to concussions and head injuries changed the way you do anything?
No, it really doesn't change anything that we do. There has been a substantial decrease in concussions by the changes that they've made, though, especially around the catcher's position. Not allowing those collisions at home plate has significantly dropped the incidence of concussions. It doesn't change how I manage them or how our medical doctors manage them when they occur, but the incidence is way less, and which is a really good thing. You can't really prevent collisions with the wall. You can't prevent collisions in the outfield player to player when balls get hit between them, but there are some preventable causes of concussion, and the rules changes around the home plate have been substantially beneficial.
What about soccer with all the head butting, all the head hitting in soccer? Is that a factor in terms of concussions?
Yeah, it can be. It can be, and it's a concern for multiple repetitive injuries and blows to the head. And I don't manage soccer players. I know that there has been a heightened awareness and concern for the headers, especially in the young soccer, underdeveloped young soccer players. What impact is that on young brains? And there's a lot of effort being put into trying to establish what's reasonable for the younger players.
Now I have a grandson who's 15 on Long Island. He's in his second year, and they wanted him to play last year. They wanted him to play varsity lacrosse because he's that good. And we spoke with our daughter and decided against it. The same with football, because he just didn't have the heft to him. And we didn't think that was a wise thing to do. This year, he was on the JV of his high school team, which did not do well, but he did really, really well. One of the best players in the league, and they're getting together a highlight film of his because he wants to come to the University of Minnesota.
Really?
Why? I don't,
It's certainly not a lacrosse power like Duke or Maryland or some of the East Coast
Syracuse,
teams.
Syracuse, my alma mater.
Yeah. And so, it's interesting because lacrosse is similar to football in that it's a collision sport.
Right.
So, I mean, your hesitancy in an immature, underdeveloped player is reasonable. If he's a scrappy player and doesn't get hit because he's so fast and so quick.
Last year he was 5'4" and 130 pounds. This year he's 5'9" and about 170 pounds. So he's
filled out nicely. Yeah. And so
and he's working out like crazy.
Yeah. And so we don't. There's not as much head collisions in lacrosse. Concussions aren't as big a factor. They're well protected, but lots of major contusions and injuries and other things, and it's basically an impact type sport without the protection of some of the pads in football. It's a tough sport,
and it really is because it's constant running, and baseball is not constant running. No. Even football is not constant running, but lacrosse, you are going
lacrosse and
top
soccer,
speed.
Lacrosse and soccer, and the players in soccer will take a little breather, but there's still 90 minutes of running and activity, and so there are aerobic sports, running, and the different sports that are like that, and then not so much aerobic sports like baseball And basketball is another sport that's an amazing aerobic sport. Even though they can be up and down the court, and they're max running, max effort all the time.
Yeah, I was watching the Gophers last night, as a matter of fact, who pulled an upset at Wisconsin, and a lot of running there.
Well, and the Gophers last night got through that in spite of the foul trouble that they had and limited players. All of a sudden, it becomes a bigger deal when you don't have your players at the end and nobody gets to rest.
And they're young and they look disorganized, but they did pull it out.
Yeah, it was fun to watch.
Yeah. Now, what's the American College of Sports Medicine? Because I know that you are a member of that. So
the American College of Sports Medicine is a group of providers, and it is not just physicians. It's across the board. The College of Sports Medicine has primary care sports medicine doctors, physiologists, orthopedic surgeons, a wealth of different providers, and it's an organization that strives to do research and try to improve the care and provision of care and the knowledge about all kinds of sporting injuries.
And the orthopedic society, is that the same thing?
No, it's a different organization. I would say that the American College of Sports Medicine is more a primary care group. I belong to that, but as an orthopedist, I'm in the minority for all the other people in that particular organization. The AOSSM, which is a sports medicine society, is doctors who provide sports medicine coverage. And then there's the general broad category of orthopedic surgeons, which is our national organization. And those two groups are purely orthopedists. The American College of Sports Medicine is many specialties, and orthopedists are much less contributory to that particular organization.
We've been talking with Dr. John Steubs, and actually we have shot almost our half hour.
Alan, it always goes so quickly. I can't believe it.
I have a bunch of other questions. We'll get you next time that you are here. You are leaving on February 13th for Fort Myers. And
as we've said in the past, as I've always said in the past, it's a really tough job, but somebody's got to do it. And so I enjoy it, and I continue to do it because it's enjoyable being around the players and the organization and helping them as much as I can.
There's a rumor that you get some golf in also.
No, that couldn't possibly be true.
Oh,
yes, I get a chance to play a little bit of golf, and so.
Well,
it's nice to get away from Minnesota this time of year too. Alan, you're very welcome. It's always a pleasure.
I appreciate it, and
all right, good to see you.
Maybe if we're lucky, we'll see you in Fort Myers. If not,
you look me up.
You got it.